That takes us to step 4. We recommend from the start that you create a flexible 10-week learning plan. We encourage you to do this after your introductory meeting, after you get those student goals and prioritize them, and during the first week of tutoring or teaching, approximately at the beginning, of course, is the plan. You want to integrate all the learning objectives that you've identified relating to the student goals, and you want to consider how to sequence them from more basic to more advanced, or there might be other factors in how you sequence those. And then you want to make sure that you also build in time for review and assessment. As Hadi said, if you go over things once, they have almost no chance of being able to do it. So you really want to make sure that you have some repetition and review. And assessment in the sense that you see, okay, are they understanding this? Are they able to do this? Have them demonstrate what they can do rather than just assuming they're getting it. So I am recommending, it's not a requirement, but I am recommending that all teachers create a written learning plan. It can be very skeletal and you can fill in details as you go along, but it's just very helpful having a preliminary broad outline for each week or each session. And then I would also encourage you to share it with your student and say, what do you think? Here's what I'm thinking about our 10 weeks. Does this sound like a good way to start, a good plan? But always make it clear that all plans in language learning are tentative. You want to be responsive. You want to see how things go. But it helps to have a starting point, have a direction. This kind of thing does take some time and some thought at the beginning, but it's an investment worth making because it will help both you and your student to manage your time for the rest of the semester and to have a sense of where you're going. Some of our tutors have found this kind of long-term planning to be very daunting. So I want to spend a little time talking through strategies for how to do this. And we're going to use Amina as an example again. So if I were going to meet with Amina or any student, I might write up something like this. And this template is also available on the Google Drive. If you want to use this particular template, you're welcome to. So I would, instead of feeling like it's just this whole semester ahead of me, let's start mapping it out. We know we have 10 weeks and we have 2 sessions each week. I would start with the items in blue. So day 1 is our introductory meeting. So I kind of already know what's going to happen there. We're going to meet each other, we're going to be introduced, and we're going to work on our student goals worksheet. And then I know I would like to definitely stop about halfway through, stop the flow of new material, and kind of have a check-in. I might do other things in that session, but I want to put that down to remind myself, like we should stop halfway through and have a conversation about how things are going, whether the student wants to change goals or change instructional methods. Ask them, have that conversation. Their lives may have changed. So I like to remind myself to have that conversation about halfway through. And then in the last session, I know I'm going to want to take some time to reflect on the students' growth together, to talk about, look at what you can do now that you couldn't do 10 weeks ago. That's a valuable conversation to have. And I also would want to discuss strategies for continuing their development, right? Because now if they're leaving you, how can they continue to grow as an English speaker, English user without me, like more independently? I want to give that student some ideas about how they can continue to develop and build on what we've talked about. And then, again, I also want to make sure, even though I might do a little bit of repetition and review every time, I also want to build in longer chunks of review. So I would divide this session about into thirds, as you see here in green. So about 3 weeks in, I would want to schedule a whole session just to review everything we've already practiced and talked about. And then another 3 weeks, another review session, and then at the end, another review session. So you start off with actually a lot there without even putting in anything specific to your student. And then it doesn't seem so overwhelming anymore, right? Then you just start to fill in with more of the specifics. So let's say that after your introductory meeting with Amina, together you filled out the student goals worksheet and with these 3 goals. Goal number 1, find a preschool for her daughter. Goal number 2, she wants to meet other moms. And then we also talked about she wants to learn about children's programs at the library and develop conversation skills in order to meet and develop relationships with other moms. Goal number 3, she wants to be able to access healthcare for her family. So now we're going to go into breakout rooms again and have an activity for you to more actively engage with what creating a learning plan feels like. So in your breakout room now, I want you to discuss how would you sequence these goals into the 10-week plan and why? What strategy would you use? Would you go 1 goal at a time? 3 weeks on goal 1, 3 weeks on goal 2, 3 weeks on goal 3? Why or why not? Would you try to tackle all 3 goals a little bit in each session? Or maybe 2 of the 3 in some sessions and then the other one separately? You know, think about the reasons for that. I know you can't figure this all out right now. I just want you to engage in the process, the thinking process of start thinking about it. How would you sequence these goals into a 10-week plan? What is your strategy? So again, we'll have about 7 to 10 minutes in the groups to discuss this, and then I'd like to hear a little bit from each group. 1 second, if you want to jot down a couple of notes about these goals. Find a preschool, meet other moms, and be able to access healthcare. So you're thinking in terms of strategy for sequencing. Hey, what do you guys think? What would you do? What are your thoughts?
I feel like I would try to work a little bit on each thing. I don't know if simultaneously, but pretty early on, just because all 3 of them seem well, at least finding a preschool and healthcare seem like more time sensitive, and the sooner you can connect to other humans that are probably doing the same thing, the better. So not to be overwhelming, but to help each goal kind of support the other, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Mm-hmm. Did anybody see it a different way? There are lots of ways of looking at this. I've heard them all. You have to start somewhere.
It seems as though you could also ask the student or ask her what her priorities are. But I tend to agree. I'd probably do 1 or 2. And the health seems like an important one, or if that's important to her, or maybe it isn't.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good point. Like, do they have urgent health needs right now, or is it just a broader feeling like, oh, I better figure out how to go to the doctor? That when you know the answer, that gives you your answer, right? Other thoughts?
I agree with kind of starting them all around the same time, just because at least like with the healthcare, it's definitely like ongoing. Like it's not like, oh, we'll talk about this for 3 weeks and then it's over. Like once you kind of get started with the healthcare system, you're in it for life. So I think like the sooner you start, the better, because I'm sure like questions will continue to pop up like as the weeks go on.
Okay, yeah, I agree. But I'm gonna challenge you guys a little bit more because we need to do all 3. But the reality is to really make headway on any one of them, it's going to take a whole session. You know, it's going to take some time. So I understand what you're saying, that all 3 are important and they all support each other. But if you had to pick one without, you know, if your student says, I don't know, I need your help. So it's on you. And you had to pick one for the first 2 sessions, what would it be and why?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
I can't remember what they are. So tell me what they are and I'll put them in order.
Okay, they were find a preschool for her 2-year-old, meet other moms and get involved in the library, like the children's programs at the library. And then the 3rd one was the healthcare. But Kathleen, what's your question?
Oh, I just had a clarifying, like if we've determined that, you know,
Exactly. Right. I like the way you're thinking through what you would want to ask the person and how you would figure it out. Other comments? Other ideas?
Are you saying that we can't ask her?
No, you should. You absolutely should. Yeah.
I'd tend to ask her priority.
Yes. I mean, I think it's a two-way street. It's, you ask her, you learn more about her life. Like, when are the deadlines for signing up for a preschool? I mean, the deadline might be this week and you have to do that first or it's gone, right? Or it might be 2 months away. And so then there's much less urgency. So the point is, yeah, and explore that with her. But in the end, our students do also want guidance from us. We know some things about life in America that they don't know. And so, it's the best answers, I think, come from true dialogue, hearing that all the person can tell you about what she wants, and then also helping her think through and giving some suggestions when you feel like there is a reason to do one over the other. Okay, so I would really like to hear some of the strategies that the other groups discussed about how to sequence the learning goals. Can someone please share what the highlights from your discussion?
I can start.
Ellen?
One of the things that we talked about was the similarity that a lot of Amina's goals focus around her daughter and her family. So having more vocabulary around how to describe her daughter, whether that's her physical body in a doctor's office or her personality to a future teacher, having some language around how to describe her family and who she is and her daughter's needs could be a helping start for any of those conversations.
That's a great idea. I don't think I've ever heard that one before. And it would also be something she's very comfortable talking about. People tend to like to talk about their kids, and she would know a lot about that topic. And like you said, then you can kind of help her eventually. Like, that's a nice lesson or two, and then start plugging those into the different contexts, and she'll already have a nice foundation of vocabulary and maybe expressions to work with. Great idea. Did anybody talk about other strategies? Well, I know in our group, would someone like to, I think there was a main point of our discussion in our group. Can anybody kind of summarize what we were talking about for the sake of the other groups?
I can try. I think we sort of talked about getting the students, getting Amina's input as far as what her priorities are, and then once we sort of, as far as like what order to kind of tackle her goals, and then once we knew that, sort of like, I guess, triaging them as far as what's most important, and then offering our own suggestions as to what might be useful. And we also noticed a connection between the three goals and felt like they sort of overlapped a little bit with like you said, like talking about her daughter, meeting other moms might know things about preschools and healthcare and stuff like that. So I don't know, am I missing anything?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was great. Like, the main point is we got to find out from her more specifics about what's important to her and just the realities of life. Like, is it a really urgent health issue? If so, that's going to rise to the top. If not, if it's more general, maybe that can wait a little bit. And like Kathleen was suggesting, get to know some other moms first, then you can ask about different pediatricians. Also, in terms of preschool, how much does she know? Does she know anything about preschools? If not, we might want to help her know, like, there are certain a lot of them have deadlines when you have to register and they fill up. So we want to help her find out what those are. And then again, make a decision based on that. If the deadline is next week, we better do that first, or else it's not going to happen. But if there's time, maybe we put that at the end of the list. Okay, this is great. I mean, I think that the way you're thinking about this is exactly what you need to do when you're facing your own student and his or her particularities. So let's, we're kind of running out of time. I want to go wrap up this presentation. Okay, so after you've kind of designed that 10-week learning plan, then comes the real fun of teaching and the real creative part of teaching, which is designing individual lesson plans. So this will happen. I mean, what we recommend is throughout the 10-week period, I recommend one session or 1 week at a time, so that you can really be responsive. You want to see how that session goes before you plan too far ahead. For lesson planning, as I said before, we will supply you with books and instructional resources and methods. You are also encouraged to find your own, and authentic local materials are absolutely great to use. Somebody in our group brought this up, like, well, can we actually go to the library? Can we actually go to a restaurant? Yes, you can. As long as you're in a public place, you can go and experience these things and practice language together, or just have the student or yourself collect materials from those places or look at their websites together. Those are great instructional resources, but they're totally relevant. Okay, but we will go much more into designing individual lesson plans in sessions 2 and 3. So to wrap it up, step 6 is assess growth. And even though it's step 6, it sounds like it's at the end, but it's what we recommend is really assessment is an ongoing experience where you're observing what your student can do every time you meet with him or her, and where they still need support. And then you adjust your instruction based on that assessment. So I'm not talking about tests. Tests are not necessary at all. If you like giving little quizzes, tests of some sort, and your student or some students really want that, you certainly may do that. But most people, I would say, don't use tests, and it's not necessary. It's more of a just ongoing observation. I just wanted to call your attention that you all will be asked to submit a monthly form. Just write us some notes once a month, and we'll tell you more about that. But that is a place also for you to pause and reflect on your students' growth, and hope that helps you. It also helps us to see what can your student do now that they couldn't do before. As I said before, I recommend very intentionally setting a time about halfway through the 10 weeks to assess growth and revisit the goals and adjust as needed, and just kind of reset your work together. And then certainly at the end of the term, take some time to encourage your student to reflect on their learning, and for you also to share what you've observed, because a lot of times, you know, you're just going on day to day, and the student won't realize how far they've come, and it's very valuable to help them see that. So there it is. Simple, easy, 6 steps to successfully tutoring a Mid-State Literacy Council ESL student. Number 1, get to know your student before you meet him or her and throughout the experience. Identify specific achievable life goals. What do they want to be able to participate in more effectively, more appropriately? Then this is your job, is to break that down into more bite-sized chunks, learning objectives, language skills that they need to achieve those goals. Then sketch out a 10-week learning plan, get your students' feedback on that, and then start designing lesson plans 1 session or 1 week at a time, and assess growth throughout. Okay, any questions or comments before we wrap up for today?
I have a question.
Mhm.
Do you recommend any online sources specifically? Or it's just a free for all, whatever we can find?
Actually, our friend Karen here is working on that. We are working on collecting and curating a list of recommended sources. It's a work in progress. And I can show you what we have on Wednesday. I'm going to show you. But to be honest, a lot of times students find their own things specific to their particular student and their needs that are better than what we have. But we will definitely point you to some that we know are good.
Okay.
I would
Go
like
ahead,
to
please.
say one thing
Okay.
is that you don't always need a meeting with Erica or Bridget. Sometimes just, you have one specific pressing question, send them an email or pick up the phone and call. And I found that so helpful when I was in your position and I was learning. So, they are accessible. And sometimes it's just a question like when, such and such, I'm trying to achieve such and such with my student. I'm not sure that, I'm doing the most effective thing, or is this better than that, and they can let you know. And then you can move forward and feel really good about what you're doing.
Thank you, Karen. Yes, we welcome that kind of conversation. And we will also have a number of, we call them touch-base meetings. You could think of it like a staff meeting where we invite everyone, all volunteers, to come and talk about their challenges and talk about what they're doing. So that's another way you can come and get some help. So there are many, many different ways.